What's going on, everybody? Today I'm going to be showing you the ins and outs of how to pick a good project motorcycle. Whether it's your first flip or your second, or you're just doing it for something cheap to ride, I'm going to show you what to look out for, what's a good idea, what's not. So let's get into it. Before I show you the 5 bikes I've picked out today, I want to say that basically whenever you buy a project, you always have to do your research beforehand. Check out the parts. If you don't want to do a job that you know the bike needs, like some transmission swap or something, call a shop and find out how much they charge to do the job. When you call a shop, don't ask for their advice, but instead ask for how much they would charge to do the job. That way you can know whether you can budget for that or whether that's something you should really consider taking on if you're going to take on the project as a whole. And of course, don't buy the first thing you see. Broken motorcycles usually stay online for a while because there's not that many people out there that are trying to buy a project. Don't buy something that's a bigger problem than you want to deal with. So for starters, I'm going to show you how I search on Craigslist to try and find project bikes. First of all, I'll go to the motorcycle scooter section, and then this is often what I set up my parameters to be. Price at $2 to get rid of the things that don't have a price, because that's often from a dealership, and $1,000 is a good max to start with because over $1,000 you're not really getting into a project. It's a bit more of an expensive project. I'm not really interested in riding anything less than 250cc, so I've put 275 as a minimum cc. With that, we've got these, and from these and a little bit more searching, I found 5 bikes I think will be pretty good for you, so let's get into it. This 85 Shadow here is a good buy. It needs some basic work, but it's an entry-level fix for most of the problems it has. You can tell some of the leather's ripping, which isn't the end of the world, but it kind of degrades from the overall quality of the bike. It's certainly been sitting outside for a while, given the rust on the headers here. It's just a bit run down. Tire looks a little flat. It's just rusty in general. This probably has been sitting for a long time. Let's see what the ad says. Like many broken motorbikes, it often comes with a story, and that's what he kind of writes here. He doesn't have any time now because he's a parent. Oh, boo-hoo. And he says it needs a battery, maybe carbs, needs mirrors, the thermistor, and the signals. So this is a good thing to do. Cleaning carbs isn't hard, a battery is easy, finding mirrors is often just threading them on and doing a bit of searching on eBay, and lights. Bulbs are easy. And who cares what he thinks about riding the bike? That's for you to know. Otherwise, it's good. It's got a clean title, decent mileage, whatever on the paint color, and he gives you the whole VIN there if you want to run it through a VIN check to see if it's stolen or not. So this is a good buy in my opinion. $400 is a good price. Up a day ago, if I was really interested, I'd go see this tomorrow or something because this might sell pretty quickly at that price. This would be a good starter bike. I'd highly recommend this. And it's a decent price. I know you could make a profit on this if it was really just carburetors and mirrors and a thermistor. Next up, we have this 1983 Honda Magna 750cc parts or fixer-upper. So it says clutch blown and second and third gear need to be reefed on to shift. He basically says he took it to San Francisco back in 2014, ran great, but now he wants to get rid of it. You can tell just from his photos he took this thing everywhere. And that's great. So it tells you he took care of the bike probably if it went that far, but now it's up for sale. So you'd think, okay, needs clutch and second, third gear are bad. So that's a big job. So I went looking on eBay to do my due diligence for this bike. And I found this. You can get gear sets for cheap, like $75 for the whole gear set, the shift fork, everything $90 for the gear set. Like, that doesn't include the clutch that you'll need that he says it's worn out on, but like $75 for like your whole transmission, shafts, and everything. Like, whew, that's cheap. So this is the kind of due diligence I would go through basically when looking over a bike, is figuring out what it needs, what parts I need to buy, and where can I get them and how much do they cost. I thought this would be way more expensive. I thought you'd have to drop $300 on parts like this to fix this kind of bike, but apparently not. So I haven't sourced out a clutch, but if you can get gears for that cheap, I'm sure you could find a clutch for $100, $200, maybe from a local place, new. With that said, although the gears are cheap, the job and the labor wouldn't be. I don't know what it would take to get that out, but I could imagine you'd have to pull the engine out of the frame, just given the style of engine being a 90-degree V-twin. I'd imagine you'd either have to take this entire side cover off and then some more, or you'd have to just drop the engine out and break the case and do everything to take it apart. Huge job. So this could be a good flip if you know how to do that and you don't have to take that to a mechanic shop to have them change the transmission and basically all of that, because that would be a lot of work to pay someone else to do. So this is one of those things that if you've got the time, if you've got the knowledge, this could be a really good flip for you. Next up, we got this Ninja 600, and oh boy, does this thing look a little bit crusty. So, let's see. Yeah, gross. passenger seats torn up. The fairings that are on the grass are super cracked, and that just kind of degrades from the bike's overall appearance in my mind. I had to go look up what this bike looks like with all its fairings because this doesn't really give you an idea. It looks pretty cafe racer without them. So I went looking, and really the bike should look like this. Like, that looks nice. The painted deckled fairings looks pretty sweet, but without all that, it just looks like a junky bike, like from the 80s. It's kind of gross. So he basically says, was running recently but needs carburetor adjustment, rims and tires and forks like good condition. Used for parts or rebuild. That kind of implies that there's more wrong with the bike and it should probably be parted out. Also, big red flag is that it's got a missing title. Yikes. I don't know if you want to deal with that. At least where I am, that means dealing with the bureaucratic ICBC, and that could be a pain. That can take a long time, so if you're planning on buying this in the spring and then riding it through the summer, it might be a real hassle to get the title sorted and get it registered. Might have to go for an inspection. Not really sure, but if you're going to buy a bike like this that's missing a title, make sure you do your research about what it takes to find a title for this bike. Next, moving up the price range, we got this Honda CX500, $1,000 in South Surrey. Of course, like so many people, when it runs good, like no duh. It's a pretty clean looking bike otherwise, though. This could be good. He's asking $1,000, and I think that's just too much. He says was running but has a problem with the fuel. That's just him guessing. You can't really take this as fact. He might be out to lunch on this. It might need carburetors, but who knows? Maybe it needs plugs, or it's got a bad ignition coil, or it's got a main switch or a main relay issue that hasn't been tracked down that's gone bad while the bike's been sitting outside. So you might think, oh, $1,000, if I clean the carbs, that'll cost me $10 in brake clean in an afternoon. I could sell it for $2,000 because I went and looked, and you can buy another bike just like this CX500 for $2,000. There's one for sale right now. But you might dig into it and go, oh, the carb boots are torn, and ka-ching, $50. Oh, and it doesn't just need carbs, it needs a relay. Ka-ching, oh, the seat's got a tear in it, the shock's blown. Like, ka-ching, ka-ching, it just adds up. So $1,000 for a bike that doesn't run is kind of a joke. I'd say any bike that doesn't run from the 80s is probably not worth more than $600 or $700 unless it's something really rare and really special and already in mint condition. They want the money as if it were running because they know it's just a quick fix, but they don't know that. So take that to your advantage when you're dealing with these kind of sellers. The second last bike on this list is a 93 Honda CBR 600 F2. This is basically Honda's dulled down version of their CBR 600RR. The F2 is just a little bit more comfortable than the RR. It looks pretty suspicious. Look at this thing. It looks like it was a stunting bike. Like somebody stripped this thing down and went to a parking lot and practiced their wheelies and stoppies and dropped this thing a couple times. With the fairings missing on the front and the rear tail missing, it just looks like this thing's been beat on. It's just a stunting bike. And you can also, this sounds kind of weird, but look in the background. Look kind of what area this bike comes from. It kind of tells you a bit about what the owner's like. And overall, though, for $1,000, it runs. Say, purchased it last season from a guy who let it sit for 8 months. Wasn't starting, replaced carbs, jets, and fuel lines. She runs good now, no muffler, blah, blah, blah. Wiring harness kills battery. The guy tried some stuff and doesn't know why it kills the battery overnight. No front signals. That could be a pretty easy fix. If you know how to work a multimeter and you know how to probe for current draw, that's not that hard. You basically go to the fuse box, figure out which circuit's drawing power when the bike's switched off, and then trace down the problem. It could often be just a stuck relay or some light that's being grounded or any worst case scenario. It tracks the ignition side of things and the ECU is constantly pulling current, and then you need a new ECU because one of the relays or something is stuck inside of it, or a transistor is constantly pulled down. It could be a bunch of things, but if it's just a relay like the radiator fan or something like that that's simple inside this engine, it could just be a simple fix with a multimeter and an afternoon learning about electronics. So this could be a good fix. It's a clean title, decent mileage. You'd have to once again go and do the research and find out how much fairings cost for this bike. If you want to actually flip this and sell this, you'd get a lot more money for it if it was fully fairinged and it didn't look like a bike that someone had just taken to a parking lot and practiced wheelies on and not cared about. If you can make the bike look like it's been cared about by somebody, it'll sell for a lot more. So finally, the newest bike on our list, and coincidentally the most expensive, is this 2014 Honda VFR 800. This isn't mechanical. This has a crash damage. When you look right here, you can see the bike's missing a fender and a bunch of stuff. You can see it's been dropped and slid along the ground, a bunch of damage on the sides, and here we are. Big damage. Now let's read about what the guy says. Selling this really nice project, doesn't need much to fix it up. Bike is currently salvage status and will need an inspection once fixed to put it back on the road. Bike runs and rides, only has 9,000 kilometers and 2 exhausts, yada yada. Salvage title. Now in BC where I am, this basically means that once it's fixed, it has to go through an inspection by an authorized inspector. It has to pass to basically prove that it's roadworthy, which it is a huge inspection on the bike. Everything from the tires to the brakes to the engine to no check engine lights and the lights work. Everything gets checked over. So this could be a bit of a mess to actually pass the inspection, not because of the crash damage, but more so because of the other little things you might run into, like or a pesky ABS light that just won't go away. But it's $3,500. I went to compare basically what you could sell this for if it was running, and there wasn't really anything else that was this year, this model that was up for sale. So it kind of makes it hard to figure out whether this is going to be a profitable flip. But if you're just in it to find something that's modern, reliable, and isn't a big problem, like you're not going to be cleaning out carburetors and working with something from the 80s, this could be a good flip for you or a good project. It's not cheap, like it's not really in the project price range, I'd say, but if you've got more of a budget and you don't want to drop like $4 or $5 grand for an R6, but you want to get something in that speed range and modern, this could be a good thing for you. It's a pretty nice bike. I kind of like the bronze on white. It's a pretty clean look, and yeah, I bet it's got a lot of life left in it if it only has 9,000 kilometers. But these fairings, man, they could be expensive. Could be a little bit challenging to find. If you go to the dealership, they'll charge you hundreds, and if you go on eBay, it might be cracked or not white, and you might have to get it painted, and bodywork's just always expensive unless you can do it yourself, so keep that in mind. Those are my 5 picks. I like Craigslist. I know Facebook Marketplace has kind of taken over nowadays, but Craigslist just really has a good way of filtering down what you want to see and what you're not interested in looking at. One of the things I personally don't like when I've been selling a project bike is when someone who's interested in the bike asks me how much it would cost to fix something or how much a part costs. Like, I don't know, and like, I'm not the one who has to do that research. If you're calling somebody about their project bike, don't ask them like how much it would cost to get this plastic fairing or to have the carbs clean. Like, do your own research and figure that out. And what I'd recommend is basically try and source your parts locally. So do a Google Maps search and try and find out a salvage yard for motorcycles or some place that parts out these bikes. Or check Facebook Marketplace for someone parting out the bikes. And then call them and see if they have the parts you need. Or call the dealership and say, hey, how much would these parts cost and can you get them? For bikes back in the 80s, it can be kind of hard to get parts, so that's definitely something you want to look into. And then after that, call a private shop and say, how much would it cost if I brought you the carbs, let's say, for you to clean them? And they might say, oh, $200, and then you know at least how much going into that project it would cost for you to outsource some of that work. And don't forget, when you buy a project motorcycle, you're buying it because the person that's selling it to you doesn't want to fix it. That means they've run out of time and they genuinely just don't want to do it, or there's something they're not telling you. Whether they've tried to fix that slipping clutch and they found out it wasn't just a clutch and it's like destroyed third gear or something like that, and they just don't want to tell you. And if the bike doesn't have a battery in it and just won't start, you don't ride the bike and you can't find out. And then before you know it, you get a battery in it and start it, and your first ride you discover it's missing third gear or something. That could be really bad. So when you're looking at a project bike, try and suss out the owner as much as the machine you're looking at, because the owner may tell a different tale when he says, oh, it just needs a battery, it just needs a carb clean. If they seem to be oversimplifying the problem, there might be something happening that they're hiding behind. But if they seem like a genuine person who just has run out of time or money or interest in the project, it might be something really good, Another man's trash is another man's gold, If you're willing to put in the time to do the work to refurbish this item, it might be worth something, but this person just isn't. That might work out for you. So I hope this video has been helpful. I hope this helps you find a good project, whether it's an FZ6 or a CBR 600 F2, whatever it is. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope my videos help you fix whatever you're working on. So please smash the like and subscribe button down below for more content. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a good day.